Hey everyone, Mia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to take a deeper look into the upcoming new moon that is happening in the sign of Gemini. This new moon will take place on May 27th or May 26th, depending on where you are in the world. And what we are really going to take a look at today is this head-heavy, Mercury-ruled moon that usually has a tough time getting into the sensing and feeling body. Basically, what is the difference between naming emotions and truly feeling them? Because there is a slight difference here, right? And Gemini, all Mercury moons actually, which is Virgo and Gemini, we can group both of them into this category. They have a hard time differentiating between thinking their emotions and actually feeling them, and realizing that thinking your emotions isn't feeling them. And so this is kind of the main theme that we are going to take a look at today, and how we can lead with this curiosity that Gemini so often brings into our life, and how we can use that to our own benefit to lead with curiosity and letting us get us deeper into our sensing and feeling body. So this is really what we're going to take a look at today. And we also have the ruler of this new moon. So Mercury is actually already just newly moving into the sign of Gemini when this new moon is taking place. Like Mercury will have just moved into Gemini a few days prior. So Mercury is really in a good place. It's in its home sign. Therefore, this theme is just even more prevalent, and it is also a bit of a preparation. This Gemini season, I feel like, is definitely a preparation for the much longer transit that we have upcoming, which is when Uranus moves into the sign of Gemini, because Uranus will be in the sign of Gemini for the next 7 years. Now, it is true that Uranus will retrograde back into the sign of Taurus this year, so it's not fully moving into Gemini yet, but definitely the upcoming years. And this is like a small glimpse we are getting now. Even with the Jupiter in Gemini, we have already gotten a small glimpse of what is kind of awaiting us. But yeah, just because it is this new transit that is coming into our lives, I feel like this Gemini season really serves as a preparation. And I feel like this new moon, like if you are into setting intentions and making new wishes around the new moon, I do think this might be a very good time for you to lay a sort of foundation and groundwork, or wish for things that you want to learn and receive during this long-lasting Uranus in Gemini transit. So this is just some information before we dive into this. And I think this isn't really before, but let's just look at Gemini as an archetype. Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac. So today it comes after Aries and then Taurus, and then comes the sign of Gemini, the sign of the twins. And for the first time, there is a dual nature, not just because Gemini is a mutable sign, even though that is absolutely one of the big reasons as well, but there is another. There is something else. Gemini is the twins. Okay, so it's like two entities that are suddenly emerging. In Aries, we just have one thing, a ram. And in Taurus, we have one thing, a bull. But in the sign of Gemini, it's suddenly two things. So there is this first mirroring quality that we are sort of meeting in the zodiac sign and the mutability of Gemini. So a lot of the archetype of Gemini actually comes back down to curiosity, because what do you naturally, hopefully kind of do when you see another thing? You begin to ask questions. You begin to be curious around the world around you. And now this is a bit more of an evolutionary take, but I do think it fits quite well, and I really like it actually, because if we look at the signs through like an age perspective, like a metaphorical age perspective, Aries is like the newborn child, so to say, just coming out of the womb. Everything is new. Taurus, it's still a baby. Gemini is like that age where the child is old enough to speak and to start asking questions. And this is why there is a big quality of curiosity. Like curiosity is really Gemini's compass. And what's interesting about Gemini is that it oftentimes likes to ask the why much more than it necessarily wants to even find an answer to all of this. Gemini is just like, why is this happening? Why is this like this? And sometimes it's just to follow a thread, like just to see where it goes. It wants to explore the question rather than like finding an answer specifically, which is kind of the opposite when we look at the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is almost like the answering part to that question of Gemini. So I think that this is really interesting, and it's good to keep that in mind, because there is a childlike quality to the sign of Gemini. And I think we also need to differentiate here. Childish is not childlike. Childish is, you can be childish at any age, right? But childlike is a good component and something that we constantly want to strive to pull back into our lives, because most of us have completely lost the playfulness of Gemini and this childlike quality of Gemini when we become adults and we become much older. And Gemini is such a, I'm not sure if the word wake up call is the right wording here, but just definitely a call to come back to that childlike wonder and curiosity about the world, because there is just so much to explore. And imagine how you felt like when you were around that age and so many things around this world were completely new to you and you explored them for the first time, how magical that was. And that still exists. That still exists, and that is out there. So many times when I go out in nature, looking at how the bees are, going into the flowers, or just any sort of animal observations, it is so interesting for me to watch. And this is that childlike energy of Gemini that we are kind of being asked to incorporate more into our lives. Every time the Gemini seasons, let me repeat that. Sorry, sometimes I stumble over my words and I speak too fast, and we don't want that. Okay, this is literally actually what we kind of want to avoid during this Gemini new moon and Gemini season in generally, because Gemini is very fast. Okay, things are happening very fast. We do still want to slow down just a bit. So good reminder for myself, especially because I'm a natal Gemini moon. I know this energy very, very well. And so what can happen though is that curiosity and generally all the thoughts that we are thinking is something that can get just like very much stuck in our heads. Okay, my cat is here again. I swear, my cat just wants to be in every video apparently. So, okay, I guess she just wants to lay down here. But she did get food very soon, so I'm very sorry. I hope you're not annoyed by her. She just really likes to be in that room. Let me just look at my notes. So one component that sometimes can be a bit tricky or difficult for Gemini is that, and again, this is with both the Mercury ruled signs, Virgo and Gemini, is that we can get into the realm of analyzing things instead of feeling or sensing them. So words can actually come much more easily, but sensations, like feeling sensations, being in a sensation, not so much. And the thing where Mercury kind of gets stuck here is that feelings are often logical. There isn't a lot of sense to them for the most part. Like, do you really know why you're feeling the way you are feeling? Oftentimes, I'm like, I don't even know where this feeling suddenly came from. And obviously, it's good to sometimes go and analyze that. Absolutely nothing against that. But sometimes we can land too much in the realm of analysis paralysis. And like we forget that feelings aren't necessarily always something that needs to be solved. It's something that needs to be sensed and gone through. And what can exactly happen here is that sometimes we can get into this realm or like we follow that curious thread, which is a good thing, but we get so stuck into being like, oh, I need to know why I am feeling the way that I'm feeling before I can fully feel that way. Like Gemini can just get really stuck in this field of thinking, literally thinking that like I need to have a good reason for why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, for why I'm being the way that I'm being, and only then when it makes rational and logical sense, only then I am justified to feel that way. And this is exactly where sometimes then we can get stuck, you know? And so instead of landing in that realm, I suggest let's invite the curious, playful nature of a Gemini. So instead of figuring out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, because we don't need to know exactly why something is coming up. Okay? For most of the times, we don't need to know why something is coming up, but it is coming up right now in that moment. And like, who knows when again it will come up, but it is coming up now, and it is giving us a chance to be released, to be felt in that moment. Now, it is true, there are some moments that are better or worse. Maybe if you're at work, responsibility comes first, and you know, you might have to like shove it down for that moment. But that's a big but of Gemini. Gemini tends to do that quite a lot. And like, that's not the purpose of all of this. The purpose is that when we do have the moments where these feelings come up and like we're at home, we're at a safe space, we do actually sit down with this and don't fall into that analysis paralysis of going down that road of like, okay, but why I'm feeling the way that I feel. Okay, no, we're just feeling the way that we are feeling right now, and let's figure out what we can do in the moment. We don't need any justification from the past to feel okay to feel the way that we are feeling. And another thing that's obviously also difficult is oftentimes Gemini, like, because the thoughts come so fast, Gemini can very easily talk about emotions instead of like sensing them. And this is something that it can be practiced, let's just put it that way. Something I have struggled with my whole life, and I am still learning to do so. This is literally why body therapy works wonders for me, because talk therapy, I can so easily just talk about my feelings and like half dissociate from them, and then it looks like, oh wow, like what a what a great reflective person, but I didn't actually I didn't use the therapy session to be more in my body, and that's my problem. And that's why body therapy works wonders for me, and why I can so highly suggest it with anybody else. Mercury ruled moons, or other people that are just Mercury heavy and have a hard time really sensing and feeling their emotions. Because talking about your feelings is just, it's different, okay? It's very, very different. And there's, I don't even really know how to explain it, but there's just like, I can easily talk about things, and there's like, just I cut something off. And like my body is kind of here, and this is this, and they're like two different entities, like, you know what I mean? And this is where it becomes interesting. And Gemini can sometimes very well, like, you know, the wit of Gemini can sometimes very good be in that, I swear, I cannot talk properly. The wit of Gemini is very good at talking around a problem instead of the actual problem. And Gemini can sometimes do that subconsciously, sometimes very consciously. And yeah, so we have to keep that in mind. It's like Gemini can almost outwit and outsmart its own self, you know? And so that's why it can get really hard. And also the reason why, for me, like I just need direct body therapy where somebody puts me in my body so I can be like, okay, where am I actually sensing the things that are coming up in my head? Because the mind is a whole big entity. And so to use the curiosity of Gemini that is already present. Let's make this into a game. Instead of... Okay, I'm being stuck again. I am talking too fast. This video is literally a good practice for me as well. And I'm not going to cut any of this out because I need to learn to be okay with that, because immediately there's a tension that comes up and I'm like, oh gosh, no, I screwed up, but it's all okay. It's all okay. I can be in my body. I can safely be in my body. And now let me take a drink first before I continue. Because I have my notes here, but maybe I should do better bullet points. I just riff off of them. Let's just put it that way. So, I guess at the end, I'm just scared to look like a fool. But hey, it's the fool's journey. So it's okay. It's okay. Getting into the unknown is okay. I think that's where Gemini is just scared of. It's so interesting. I'm literally tapping into my own territory, which is Gemini rules my 8th house. It's not the easiest place for me. But as soon as something doesn't feel rational or logical, it feels like a threat. And that's just not what it has to be. And so I'm making this video for myself, guys, okay? This is literally the video for myself. So what can we do? We can make it a game. We can make feeling our feelings a playful and lighthearted process. Because Gemini has a big embodiment of the jester energy. And as soon as you get too serious, you lose. Like that, plain and simple. The jester, you just have to come into a lighthearted place. And as soon as you take your emotions too seriously, you kind of lose the game. And that's where we don't want to go. At least not during Gemini season and not during this Gemini new moon. Okay, I'm not saying that you should not take your emotions serious at all, but we are embodying the archetype right now. And the archetype of Gemini is a jester. And you want to play with the jester. So make it a game. Ask yourself. You can do this yourself. You don't have to necessarily go to a body therapist. But I will say Gemini is a twins. This is definitely a very good practice to also do with somebody else that is or can be your mirror. So just make it a game. Be okay, where am I feeling or sensing this in my body? Something is coming up. Is it, okay, it's around here, around my chest area. Okay, how does it feel? What is it making a noise? Is there a color that is coming up? Is there a texture? Make it a fun game of curiosity and figuring it out, solving it out, because that is embodying the curious energy of Gemini in a good way, in a constructive way. And again, as I said, you can do it with somebody as well, because Gemini is really the season to do things with another, to have some sort of mirror, or even let maybe somebody guide you that knows, that can process emotions more easily than you. This can be super, super helpful. Maybe somebody can ask you the questions that you are too afraid to ask yourself. So this can be very useful in that way. And after all, a game is more fun to play usually when there is another player you can play it with. So again, make it a game. Make it a game. And this is really how we can help ground our racing thoughts into sensations during this Gemini season. And I do also just urge everyone, I think we highly, highly, highly need embodiment practices, because Uranus in Gemini will be no joke. Okay, Uranus in Taurus was also a bit wild. It affected different things, more material things. Uranus in Gemini is literally going into the realm of the air, which is our thoughts, which is our thinking processes, our writing, everything that has to do with communication and also relationships. And so it is a very erratic energy. Mercury can already be erratic in and of itself. Uranus coming there, chiming in for the next 7 years, is highly, highly erratic. Also, depending on which points in our own charts Uranus and Gemini will hit over the 7 years, this can be very dysregulating and ungrounded energy. So it is extremely, very much our responsibility to have practices that will ground us back into our bodies, okay? Because otherwise we can just do this switch and like disassociate our head, our mind from our body, and this is not where we want to go, because then, you know, things get weird and chaotic, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're outside and you're having a panic attack and you don't even know why, when it's like, okay, it's because this and this and this and this and this happened and lined up, and you completely ignored your body, and now we are where we are. So we really have to work on incorporating the body. I just high-key recommend this. Let's just put it that way. If you don't already have embodiment practices, grounding practices, it's almost your duty. I guess depending on what you can also go headfirst into the chaos if that's your jam. I'm not judging, okay? But just it will be difficult, especially if Uranus is hitting some sensitive points in our charts. It's just we have to be careful with our mind and our thinking, okay? Because again, sorry, I'm pulling things up from my psychiatry nursing days, but you know, psychosis, all of these things that come from our thoughts. I mean, so many of our, you know, it's a mental dis-ease, you know, it's something is not okay in our head with our thinking, it's distorted, it's very real. But it's no joke, and we don't want to treat it as a joke. We want to treat it as a game and as something playful. But there is, you know, I think the best of Gemini energy, the jester, is playful, but it knows when to be serious. The jester, how should I say, goes through life playful and like it's a dance, but it never wanes off from the fact I like taking the serious topics seriously and like being there in the moment. And I actually, I feel like I actually don't know his birth chart, to be honest, but I just know he was a Libra, but I would not be surprised if he had some Gemini energy in there. But well, I was still in my nursing school, and then every year I changed the station. I was working at a different station, so I always had like a new set of people around me, and there was always like one person from the team which was like a mentor, I guess you could say. That is the best equivalent I can use to describe it with. And he was like a very silly, goofy guy, very like playful, but he was also the how should you say, the co-boss of the station. I swear, those are these like German words that I don't know immediately how to translate them into English, so I'm very sorry, but I'm sure you guys know what I am meaning or trying to say. And also with us, like, he joked with us, he also sometimes joked with the patients, but if somebody came and like you sensed that, okay, this is like serious, he was so there. Like he literally switched, and he was like so focused, giving the best advice, literally guiding people through very tough moments. And for me, this is the good Gemini energy that we need. Actually, it's interesting. My boss at the station, she was or still is a double Gemini, actually, and that was also interesting because she was actually very serious there during the work and everything. But then when we once had like team dinner, she was a different person. I swear, I was like, what is happening? She was so goofy all of a sudden. So it's interesting how both of them actually were kind of switching these roles. Gemini is so good at switching roles, at realizing, if I'm at a theater play, this is the role I have to play right now. And if something else demands it, I can switch into another role. I can be like a chameleon. Again, in a very, and this is also the jester quality, I think so, you know, of like being able to always switch into a new role and accepting that every time I do so, I am kind of the fool, especially if it's a new chapter in my life and I'm just embodying a new skin or persona or whatever. Like, it's always gonna be kind of embarrassing and cringy and weird because I am not yet that person. And so that is interesting. And you know, that was like, I think that set of people was like my favorite team out of all the years that I was there. And so my boss, she was a double Gemini. I'm a double Scorpio. Then somebody else that worked there, she is a double Taurus. And another one was a double Pisces. And then we had another person was a double Leo. And then two people that came, they weren't there exactly together. One came first and then came later because they were just doing like a practicum. What is that in English? I don't know. But yeah, she was a double Aquarius, and the other one was a double, or no, actually, I'm sorry, I mixed it up. But essentially, we had a grand cross. Okay, it was somebody was a double Aquarius, double Scorpio, double Leo, and double Taurus, and then yeah, sorry, I mixed it up. Those were we four, and then boss double Gemini, and another worker a double Pisces. And like, what the hell are the odds of even being at a station where there's so many double signs? Like, what the hell? So just interesting thing to sparkle on here. I don't know, maybe you found it interesting, maybe not. I guess I am just also embodying my goofy, silly inner guy, chill guy. So yeah, the way I guess I want to close this off, even though I didn't do this so well, but the Gemini moon, let's pause before explaining. I think this is a very good thing to just like keep in mind. So that we can let our body speak first before our thoughts and words do. And yeah, let's not forget that curiosity is a way of knowing too, and it can just lead the way. And yeah, this is really what I have for this Gemini new moon. Uploaded a lot earlier than I usually upload things, but I will be going away to visit my part of my family by the end of this month, so there's lots of content in the making, and this is why this is uploaded way sooner than usual. So I hope you enjoy. I hope this Gemini moon and Gemini season treats you well. If you're more curious about the Gemini energy, we have the Decans of Gemini video coming up soon, and the workshop about that will also be around 15th or 16th, I think 15th of July, so still a bit of time, but just to prepare you, if you have a lot of Gemini placements in your chart, do consider joining, just so you can learn much more about yourself and the whole world and realm of Gemini. So hope to see you there, and have a lovely time ahead. Bye!